Good morning, folks. This is Zach Hubeck with WAV and MBSI WAV. If you are here for the Cambium Networks 6 gigahertz webinar, you are absolutely in the right place. Folks, we're going to give everybody just a couple minutes to log in here, and we're going to get started in just a few moments. Thank you for taking your time and joining us this morning. Bruce and Jihad, how are you, gentlemen?
Doing
good, thank you.
Yeah. Here in Chicago, and Jihad's out in Philadelphia, so we've got the 2 time zones covered today.
All right. I love it. Wonderful. All right, we've got more participants coming in here. Just another minute, folks, and we'll get this thing started.
You drinking coffee or water today, Zach?
Both.
Oh, wow. Okay, it's good to stay hydrated.
Hydration is key. All right, wonderful. Well, I think I'm going to get started, gentlemen. So, folks, thank you again. Again, I'm Zach Hubeck with WAV and MBSI WAV. I'm the Executive Vice President of Marketing, and very excited to have our friends from Cambium Networks present to us today on the EPMP 4600. Not in quite some time have we seen a new whack of spectrum, not only from the FCC, but also I said, that will allow us to enhance our service provider networks, connect more people, and ultimately achieve the macro goal of bridging the digital divide. So Cambium for many, many years has been known for their innovation and their new 6 gigahertz solutions. We're excited to hear all about this. So I will not steal any of Bruce or Jihad's thunder. My only other housekeeping thing I wanted to cover with the team today is if you do have questions for either Bruce or Jihad, we've kept you all muted to make sure there's no background noise while they're presenting. If you would like to pop some information into the chat or have a question, I personally will be monitoring that, and I'll either raise my hand and call that question out to the fellows as they're presenting, or I'll hold that to the end. So please don't be bashful, folks. If you do have questions, want clarification, this session is all about you. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Bruce Collins. Bruce, why don't you introduce yourself to the group, and let's get this thing rolling, my man.
All right, great. Thanks, Zach, and thanks to the WAV and MBSI WAV team for having us today. It's an exciting topic. I can tell by the attendance and the interest in this webinar, so appreciate that. I'm with Cambium Networks, and I'm a director of product line management. So I look after a number of different portfolios in the Cambium family of products, including millimeter wave and licensed microwave and EPMP. And then Jihad is very focused on EPMP. So Jihad works in the PLM team as well, and he'll be covering part of this as we go through it. So we'll bring him online here in a moment. But let's jump right into the content, and I'll echo Zach's statement about bringing in questions so we can make this interactive. I've got some material here to go through, of course, but there's plenty of time for questions, so we can make it interactive as we go. There's a lot of we get a lot of questions because as we go through the 6 gigahertz update, there is it's a lot of moving parts as we kind of try to land the plane on getting 6 gigahertz deployed. So I won't give you the full advertisement on Cambium Networks, but I always like to flash this screen up. And we're going to be focusing on one little corner of the world of Cambium, which is down here in the 6 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz point to multi-point. But don't forget that we also do point to point. We do our whole enterprise portfolio of Wi-Fi 6, 6E, and as that platform continues to evolve with switching and security and things like the NSE. So we're going to be working almost exclusively down in this corner of the Cambium map here today. And even more focused on that is we're going to focus on the EPMP access network. So this is a product, we're going to talk about the 4000 series. So as you can imagine, that's the 4th generation of EPMP. And there's really 3 key tenets of this platform. It's all about high performance, multi-point and point-to-point. And you'll see as we go through this how we've significantly enhanced capacities and some additional ways to achieve that capacity with this new platform. And that really leads into the scalability and interference tolerance. So being able to scale up using GPS synchronization, being able to scale up with now OFDMA, with multi-user MIMO, That is really a key benefit of going with the ePMP platform. And we've carried that through the 4 generations of this product. And then we talk about investment protection. One of the key things we do here is we have multi-generation compatibility. So on the 5 gigahertz side, you can continue to elegantly and conveniently migrate from one generation to the next, upgrading your access points and bringing along those subscriber modules. And we're going to continue that with the 5 gigahertz 4000 series. So you'll see that. We also have a broad variety. You can see all the pictures of the devices there. So we have all different sizes and shapes depending on the deployment model that you're interested in. We include a 3-year warranty on all of the ePMP products. And then you can, of course, get support directly from the WAV team. You can also get support directly from Cambium, and you can talk to folks like us, and we'll help guide you and assist you with the experiences that we have around the world. And you can see that 3 million radios deployed. Some of the technology and how it's evolving. We are introducing with the 4000 series, it's important, this will be key as we go through this, is we have a 5 gigahertz platform in 4000 series, and that's called the 4500. And then we have a 6 gigahertz platform, and that's the 4600. So the 5 gig works in 5 gig, the 6 gig works in 6 gig. They both use that proven air interface. So while the underlying technology of this is the 802.11 standards, we've significantly enhanced that by overlaying things like the TDD synchronization, which enables the channel reuse. We have air fairness by byte sharing or bit sharing, the airtime, so that you don't have a single SM stealing or hogging up all of the airtime. And then as we've extended into the 4th generation here, we've added OFDMA, we've added uplink MIMO. You'll see higher modulations, wider channels, all the things that we can follow along and take advantage of as the overall industry evolves as well. And then, of course, these are not just radios, they're solutions and systems that you're using to deliver service packages to your end user. So we have the whole ecosystem of software around this. So whether it's CN Heat for pre-planning, for installation support, you have Link Planner for planning your network, and then CN Archer for the actual installs. All of these things come together in that fast TCO. So we really see this continuing to be a great alternative to deploying fiber in those areas where it's expensive to trench, when you don't have to get all the permits and everything. So as always, delivering service over point-to-multipoint wireless is a lower total cost than fiber, and we continue to see that. And we also see that balancing up and truing up of the capacity with this 4th generation. It really does compete well with those service package offerings. I kind of covered this already, but and Jihad will go through this in a little more detail, what all these products are. So I won't cover that here, but I want to reiterate that there's a 5 gigahertz flavor of this product line, and there's a 6 gigahertz flavor of this product line, and they don't mix and match. You've got one set of products in 5 gig and one set of products in 6 gig. They can overlay and be mounted on the same tower, but keep in mind that they are separate platforms. And I'm going to also probably move past this one because I want to get to your questions. I don't know if you've got any coming in yet, but I'll encourage you again to ask any questions that you might have. This does have a little bit of a summary of the technology that has come into play. So we have, and you can see kind of the way that the OFDM symbols are formed. The frame structure is more efficient. We're able to offer higher modulation, in some cases 1024 QAM, in other cases 4096 QAM, which kind of, those of us that have been around this industry for a long time are kind of blown away, because it used to be 16 QAM was pretty exciting, and then 64 QAM. Now we're actually talking about 4096 QAM in real world scenarios in the 6 gigahertz spectrum. So it's really a I guess it's it's impressive that the technology has moved that far for outdoor fixed wireless over the last sort of 20 years. We've also added uplink MIMO and OFDMA. So these are also benefits to getting more packets in the same amount of spectrum. So much of the evolution of this technology is how do I get more out of the same limited spectrum that we have available to us. So that's where you see the OFDMA and the uplink MIMO. Everything else is the same. The air interface is the same. If you've deployed ePMP in the past, it's the same look and feel. You'll be very comfortable. All you'll see is more options to go faster. So you'll be able to pull down and choose wider channels. You'll be able to pull down and choose higher modulations. But the rest of it is the same. So that's the overview of ePMP. I want to drill into 6 gigahertz because that's really the new news in spectrum and the world of regulatory and opening up more space for us to work in. So to that end, here's a picture of the 5 and 6 gigahertz spectrum. And what the FCC and also Industry Canada are doing is they're opening up 850 megahertz of new spectrum in the US, and there's a bonus 100 meg in Canada. And you'll see it's this Uni 5 and Uni 7 bands that are opening up. You can do up to 160 megahertz channels in these bands. And what's fundamentally different in how these bands will work compared to over here, you see the traditional 5 gigahertz band, is that this 6 gigahertz requires the use of an AFC. And I'll go into that in more detail on the next slide. The other difference is that there's a symmetrical power limit in this band of 36 dBm each direction. So that's a little different than how 5 gigahertz worked, but we'll cover that. It will have some practical implication, especially if you were doing really long distance shots with 5 gig. You'll have to keep this in mind. Link Planner takes care of all of that for you. So this is all in Link Planner today. And you can have a look at how that behaves. I'm going to keep going. I did drop this one in here just to show that for those folks in Canada, there is this extra 100 megahertz of spectrum that's sliced that's right here in the middle. So if the top row here is FCC channelization plan, and then the bottom is the Canada version. I might as well take this opportunity to say where we're at with Canada type approval on 6 gigahertz. We now have approval on the radios. So the radios are approved in Canada. So that's and Jihad will go through what those radios are. And then we also have our partner Qualcomm has their AFC also approved in Canada. So what we're doing now is final integration testing. Now that both of those are approved, we got to integration test them and bring them live. And the latest information is we expect that to be done by the end of February. So in the next 3 weeks or so, we expect to start seeing real traffic on the 6 gigahertz live network. Now, hiccups can happen, of course, but we'll be sure to let you know through social media and through our community and through our webpage. You'll know exactly when that happens. The other thing that'll happen is it'll be the right time to upgrade to that version of firmware that supports the AFC. So that'll be a requirement at that time as well. But we're real close to that happening in Canada. And I guess there's a little bit more information here. You can see the certification numbers for ISID-C. Qualcomm is our AFC provider. And then here's some models. I think the other thing it's important to note for those of you in Canada, we are using a same common set of part numbers for both FCC and Canada. And I'll explain how we can get away with that on the next slide when we talk about how the AFC works. So here's a kind of a real high level view of how that AFC works. And before I start, the whole reason of being for an AFC is that 6 gigahertz has traditionally been a licensed microwave band. So there is a large number of utilities, freight rail companies, oil and gas, some service providers that use 6 gigahertz licensed microwave. So, but they only use a portion of the spectrum. So there's a bunch of channels that go unused. So what the FCC has said is, let's open this up to unlicensed use, but let's protect those incumbent license holders. So all of those people that have already deployed 6 gig in a licensed mode, we're going to protect them. We're going to draw like a little ring fence around them and say, you're not going to be allowed to deploy this unlicensed in that area. So that the way that works is there's an FCC database of all of the licensed links. The AFC queries that database and knows where these radios can be deployed in unlicensed mode. So when every time an access point or a subscriber module or a point-to-point end powers up, comes online, it's gonna query the AFC. It's gonna say, I'm at this location. What channels and power are available to me? That's going to go out through the internet to the AFC, which is a product from Qualcomm. That's our partner. There are multiple AFCs, but we are working with Qualcomm. AFC will return back a list of channels. It'll say you can use any of these channels and you can use up to these power levels on those channels. And you'll kind of see a picture here of how that's shown on the EPMP GUI. All of these gray areas are channels you can pick based on that feedback from the AFC. Now you can pick any one of these channels. The AFC doesn't say which channel I'm going to use. The AFC just says, here's the ones you're allowed to use. Go ahead and pick any one of those. So in this case, it's showing the green is the one that's actually selected in the configuration in the EPMP GUI, but they could have just as well picked any of these channels. So that happens at startup, and then once a day it checks back into the database to see if anything changed. We don't expect this to be a very dynamic environment. There's not a lot of 6 gig license going out there, but this will check in every 24 hours. A couple other things to note is this all takes place largely behind the scenes. There's no subscription or cost or interface that you need to set up with Qualcomm. It's all done through the radio. So the radio has this AFC interface built in. The cost of that is covered by the cost of the radio. So when you purchase the radio, it includes that. And the radio also already knows how to find the URL for that AFC. So there's no configuration there as well. What you would need to do as a service provider or a network operator, you will need to make sure every one of your radios has a path out to this to a server in a particular URL. So that might mean updating your firewall rules to allow this outbound HTTPS connection to the AFC. And then we'll have some instructions on how to set up a proxy server. So if you want all of these requests to funnel through a proxy, so you only have to have one connection out, we'll be able to support that. And then we also expect down the road to support this in CN Maestro so that you'll be able to use the proxy server coincident. If you have an on-prem CN Maestro service or server, you can load it on there as well. So that's another that'll be an option coming down the road.
Hey, Bruce, just a quick comment and a question. Number one, thanks for going 2 for 2. In CBRS environments, you guys made SAS easy. Now in 6 gigahertz environments, you guys are making AFC easy for the service provider community. I'll just speak on behalf of everybody on this call. Thank you for looking ahead and anticipating and taking care of us. So thank you, Cambium, for doing a great job there. We do have one question that's very timely and relevant. Any updates on when AFC may be out or when people can start fully using all the functionality of the AFC?
Yeah, great question, and it's a hard to answer question, but I'll tell you what some of the guideposts to look for on that path. So I mentioned the status of Canada approval. Canada is using almost exactly the same. There's some subtle differences, but it's almost exactly the same. And they're a little bit further along because they've already approved the AFC and they've already approved our radio test reports, all the reports you have to go through to get a radio certified. And so we expect that to go live here at the end of February. On the FCC side, they're going to follow a same path. In sequence, they're going to approve the AFC first. We've been expecting that day to day. Frankly, we kind of expected a week ago, but we're expecting it very soon. One of the key things that the FCC is doing the final testing on is that GPS location and making sure how accurate that is, so that and the transaction on the AFC. So anyway, the sequence is they're going to approve the AFC. Once they approve the AFC, they're going to say, okay, radio suppliers, we're not the only game out there, but radio suppliers, submit your test reports for your radios. We've already done our test reports. We work with an approved FCC test lab. They've already tested them. They've already issued the test reports. We're going to submit those to the FCC as soon as they tell us that the AFC is provided. At that point, the FCC will review those test reports, and we expect that That time window is a little bit unknown. Traditionally, it's been a week to several weeks, and then at that point, we'll be able to operationalize this. The short answer of this is we're really hopeful that by the end of March, this is all up and running. I can't guarantee that. There's many times there's going to be hiccups, and we are certainly dependent on what the FCC decides to do, but that's our best guess as of today.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Okay. If you want some of this information, more about 6 gig or a deeper dive, you can go to the Cambium website and you can get this 6 gigahertz playbook, we call it. Jihad and I put this together, and it really has a lot of information about 6 gig and all of the detailed charts and everything that we showed about the AFC. So I encourage you to grab a copy of that over at our webpage. A little bit about the economics of this solution, because like I said, we're not the only game in town. And before we get into the radios themselves, I wanted to highlight one of the key benefits of ePMP in general is that you can scale this network up very large. We have networks literally with hundreds of thousands of nodes on a single network, not necessarily in the US, but around the world. I said we have 3 million radios deployed. So you can scale this up to very large networks, very dense networks. But just as importantly, you can scale this down to, say, a small subdivision or a village on the outskirts of a suburb, so that you want to light up, and maybe you don't have good coverage because of a big hill in the way. You can scale this down as well, and so you can support micro-pop architectures as well as those macro 4-sector big guy sites with the 4x4 or the 8x or the 4x4 sector in this case. So if you look at the cost per line, if you will, you can kind of see how that scales with a light sector, a medium sector, and a dense sector. And especially by keeping the cost of the access point low, and also keeping the cost of the subscriber module or CPE in line with where the ARPUs and the average cost of a service plan, we think this is very competitive and very compelling way to approach 6 gigahertz deployment. And with this clean spectrum of 6 gig, you're going to be able to offer much higher service packages because you won't have that interference. So offering 250 meg, 500 meg, even 1 gig packages is certainly within the realm of possibility with this platform.
Hey, Bruce, while we're talking sectors here, good timely question. Will it be possible to backhaul in TDD mode over long distances with net point antennas? Pretty specific question.
Oh, okay. So when Jihad goes through the portfolio, there are connectorized subscriber modules, so you'll be able to leverage that. Keep in mind there is EIRP limits in 6 gig, so I don't know specifics of the net point antenna, but with the connectorized SM, you can use third-party antennas, but there is these EIRP limits to keep in mind.
Okay.
So I think I think that answers the question. If not, maybe they can ask a follow-up.
Sounds good. If you have a subsequent question, folks, just type it in that chat. I'll handle it.
So a couple other things on 6 gig, and as we start to drill into the product now, this has had one of the longest sort of incubation cycles of any product that we've done. We started deploying this back in October of 22. So you read that right? Not 23, but 22. So it's back almost 15 months of actual live field installations and testing. And that's because over 100 WISPs have requested experimental licenses from the FCC and have been testing this product in the 6 gigahertz spectrum for that period of time. So this has been tested significantly. You can see some of the specs. I won't cover that now. I do know that WAV and MBSI WAV have product available today, and they have more coming. So if you want to get in line to get this equipment and try it out for yourself, if you're not already, give Zach a call. I have his home number if you want, and he can get you everything you need to know about these radios.
24/7, 364, Bruce. 24/7, 364. I just take my birthday off.
Nice. Oh, that's good. I take your birthday off too. That's nice. What a coincidence. Yeah.
Woohoo!
On the software side, this is the key thing. AFC support we talked about. We are expecting in Canada to have that AFC support in February. That will require an upgrade to the firmware. So whatever's shipping out of the factory and out of the distribution channel today will have to be upgraded to run the latest version that supports the AFC. And then the one that I know everyone's been waiting for, one of the features that everyone's been waiting for is TDD synchronization. That was just released on Monday of this week. So 5.6.0 is available now on our website, and that does allow you to do the synchronization, do the channel reuse, do the large scale sectors. So if you haven't checked out 5.6.0, it's been in beta since back in, I think in like November, and we just pushed the button on full commercial release on Monday. So good news on that. And then Link Planner, that's supported today. There's still going to be some tweaks coming. Jihad was just checking in on this earlier today, and we will see the some improvements in how it models MU-MIMO support, and some of the sort of the more specific features in there will come along at a point at a release later, probably later this quarter. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jihad, and he's going to take you through the specifics on a couple of these radios, and this is where your chance to ask any questions about the speeds, feeds, specs, and everything else.
One thing before we go to that, Jihad, I've got a couple more questions for Bruce here. So in regard to the AFC, Bruce, what if a radio misses a 24-hour pull, or a phone home situation happens where 24 hours elapses? What happens then?
Yeah, so the system will retry. It's pretty forgiving. It will retry. Again, it has 2 additional windows, so it'll start trying every hour after it first misses. It'll keep trying to check back in, and it will go for another 48 hours before it would actually stop the service. So you really have that 24-hour period, normal check-in, and then you've got another 48 hours after that for it to confirm that it has a connection.
All right. Awesome.
Just a clarification. It doesn't stop service. It will actually convert to fixed mode.
Good point. Yep.
Oh, sorry, standard mode, which is 30 dBi EIRP.
Yeah, so it basically, if it will drop to a lower power, which depending on your range of your radio, that may be an outage, or it may just drop to a lower modulation.
All right. Great point, gentlemen. One more, and then Jihad, you're up, sir. And thank you for that subsequent point. So, hello, we're currently a tester of the EPMP 4600. We notice connection times are so long, and the test feature does not work. Is that something that will be fixed in the future? Is that something that you guys are aware of, Bruce?
I guess I didn't quite follow the questions. They said a test feature. I don't know, is that spectrum analyzer, or is that a link test? Maybe a link test. No, I bet it's a link test they're asking about. Check out 5.6.0, which just came out. There was some improvements in link test in there. I don't know about the previous one about test. I don't know about the first part of the question. Part A was about connection times. I don't know if that means initial link time or duration of while it's up. Maybe they can follow up. And we can always come back to that, after. Or another great place is to post the very specific question like that on the forum, the community.cambiumnetworks.com, and we'll get that answered. Very
good. There's been a subsequent text here on the chat to test config changes. Does that help you out a little bit more, Bruce?
Okay. Yeah, I don't know specific if there's a specific issue with that feature, but we can check that out, and maybe we'll post something on the forum for that.
And Dominic, we know where to find you, buddy. I'm gonna link you up with Cambium Engineer and help you out, sir. So we'll do that as a follow-up to the session here. Thanks for submitting that in. All right, Jihad, let's turn it over to you, sir. Let's go through some of these products, my man.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bruce. Well, in the actual radios that we have for 6 gigahertz are 4. We have 2 APs and 2 SMs. The top AP is the EPMP 4600, is the third one from the right-hand side, and this guy is a 4x4 MU-MIMO AP operating in the 6 gigahertz. It takes 56 volt PoE, and the power consumption is about 30 watts. All of our 6 gigahertz radios, we have added 160 megahertz channel bandwidth. In comparison to the 5 gig portfolio, it's only limited to 80 gig. As the reason, this is a new spectrum. You'll be able to find 160 gigahertz of clean spectrum that you could actually configure your bandwidth to. The AP still on the 4600 will do 4096 modulation QAM, and of course it is connectorized. So we have an antenna associated with that. It's a 4x4 sector antenna that we'll be able to sell to. It's a 6 gigahertz antenna. As far as the second one, which is the fourth from the right, is the EPMP 4600L. This actually shares common hardware with the Force 4600C, with the exception that this particular one is marketed as an AP and the software is different inside of it. So it will be able to support the 126 subscribers. The 46, we as Bruce mentioned, that when we are looking at a point-to-point solution, we took that 4600L and we said, okay, let's market it, let's put it as an SM, but limit the amount of subscribers so we could sell it as a PTP solution. And this is where one of the questions that has been answered about PTP solutions doing the backhaul. This is the unit that you want to use, is a Force 4600C. All of these radios will have SFP plus, with the exception of the 4625. This is the SM that comes with the dish antenna, and this one, the reason that it is limited to 1 gig is because of the it doesn't have an SFP, and actually it does the physical PHY on it is limited to 1 gig. However, the actual circuitry of the board can support more than 1 gig. So let's continue to the next slide, Bruce.
Okay, the only thing I would add on this is, I neglected to mention at the beginning, is that all of these cover the entire 6 gigahertz spectrum. So there's some other products out there that will only cover the lower half. Some of our competitors only go up to 6.4. All of these radios cover the entire Uni 5, 6, and 7 bands that we showed on that channel plan up at the beginning. So it's important, if you're doing a comparison of this product to another product, to make sure it covers that entire spectrum.
Hey guys, we've got a good question here that's timely. There was an 8x8 connectorized radio at Wispapalooza. Is that still planned to be released?
That is actually a 5 gigahertz product. It's not a 6 gig, and it will be released in March as part of the 5 gigahertz portfolio. And we are currently in beta test with customers to do a comparison between the connectorized version and the integrated antenna.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bruce. The antennas, as I mentioned, there is a couple. One is the 4x4 sector antenna. This will be used with the EPMP 4600, and it is a 4x4. And the MOQ on it is 1, obviously, but on the lower end also we have another 2x2 dish antenna, and that is to be used with the 4600C. And the MOQ on this is 2. It's a lot easier to pack 2 antennas in one box. Any questions on the antennas?
Maybe touch on the requirement around that GPS receiver on the 4625.
Yeah, if you go back once, well, there's actually individual slides coming up. So go forward, Bruce, to a little bit. We're gonna come to it, and we'll have a chance to talk about it. This is right here. So some field trials. We had a site, a 4600 site with 10 SMs, and you could see, for closer range, about 0.5 to an average of 0.5 0.39 to 0.57. We have on the downlink is like 1.5 gigabits. This is really great. On the uplink, it's about 830. So the performance is really high. The aggregate capacity is about 2 gig on all of them. This is done using experimental licenses. So on here, even with the long range of 1.4 and 2.5 miles, you're still seeing high performance. So that is also really good news. You could see it also from the graph. The two that I'm talking about are at the low bottom of the slide. So go ahead, Chris.
So to cover let's cover off that GPS, because then we're going to shift over and we're going to kind of we're going to shift away from the 6 gigahertz topic, and we're just going to touch briefly on the 5 gigahertz topic.
I get you, Bruce. So the 46, all of the 6 gigahertz products, they do have a GPS integrated with them, but they come in the content with a puck antenna, and usually that puck antenna is just as an antenna. It doesn't have a USB. It doesn't have a GPS receiver in it, with the exception of the 4625. That puck is is inclusive of two things. One is a GPS receiver it has in it, and also the antenna, and it connects to the 4625 via USB connector. So this came about because of an FCC requirement. The FCC requirement requires that each SM that will be connected to the AFC get the GPS location dynamically. So in the past, what we have done is we've put the GPS location, the XY, in the firmware itself, and we saved it. And we used a GPS antenna just to do 1 PPS, which is timing. In here, we're using it for timing, and also we're using it for geolocation. And the geolocation, as I said, because of the FCC requirement, has to be acquired dynamically.
All right, thanks, Jihad. And this has been a point of drove a lot of questions about why is this an optional kit versus included? And really, when we started this development, like I said, we've been putting these out in the field since October 22. We were optimistic that we were going to be able to use similar rules to CBRS, where you had a professional installer locating the device and plugging the information in directly into the GUI, as Jihad mentioned. The FCC has confirmed now that they require an active GPS signal on every radio node, and it has to be active at the time it connects. It's part A. Part B is it has to be a GPS receiver that was certified with the radio when the test lab did their testing and certified the radio. So it can't be any third-party GPS receiver. It has to be the one that was tested with the radio. We are still that this market is still moving pretty quickly. We're still pushing to say, can we open this up to further ecosystem? Can we do other things? But as of today, that's the way the FCC and the IC has settled on the rules, and that's what the way we're going to proceed operationally. So that's kind of the background on that, why that's required and is an optional accessory. I wanted to point out one other quick thing on the AFC, because I forgot to mention how we're able to use one radio in both FCC and Canada. One other new addition as we've evolved this is when that radio lights up and checks in with its lat long, the AFC is going to say, oh, you're operating in Canada. I'm going to check the IC database. Or it's going to say, oh, you're operating in the US or any FCC jurisdiction. I'm going to point you to the FCC database. So one other thing, back to Zach's point about making this simple, is that's all going to be done behind the scenes. The second time it requests, it'll know that radio will know, oh, I just need to go check the Canada database or the FCC database. But the first time it's going to check, it might check both to try to make sure that this lat long is in which country. So nice little feature that's been added, and I think because we're kind of first to the game, we're able to start to embellish and add some additional capability that makes life simpler for everybody.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks. Guys, I've got a
yeah.
pretty timely and relevant question here. So there was some talk on Wisp Talk about using GPS receivers from Alibaba. Can you guys talk to that, or does it have to be Cambium GPS receiver? Talk to us.
Well, actually, the certification of the 4625 has to be with the manufacturer GPS receiver. So that does not mean that they cannot buy somewhere from Alibaba, but what they have to do is they have to make sure that they buy the same GPS that we are using with the same model, the same manufacturer, and probably same oven inside.
Yeah. So it's kind of going back to that my comment before, which is we're still working with both the test labs and the FCC, and we would love to open it up to a broader ecosystem. But as of today, the thing you really need to do is use the Cambium approved GPS receiver. So not to say that that's a permanent situation, but again, we're at the very, we may indeed be the first radio that gets approved by the FCC, and the FCC has today said you must use the GPS that's certified with the radio.
Good to know, fellas. Thank you.
Yep. So with that, we're going to shift gears just and talk briefly. This webinar has really been focused on 6 gigahertz. We gave you a little bit of a brief overview on the 5 gig platform up at the top. Let me just go back and refresh our minds about what the 5 gig platform does. So again, we talked a lot about the 6 gig. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the 5 gig. So you'll see here, it's got some different radio platforms and it covers that 5 gig spectrum. So I'm going to throw it back to you, Jihad, and you can show us which radios are available in the 5 gig. I know I'm bouncing around a bunch of slides, but we'll keep it dynamic here.
So
I'm
let's
not
go
sure if
back.
you can see it. Not sure if you
go.
can see it, Bruce, but every time you go through those slides, my hair is blowing back here. We got another question. So we have several users on the line that are experimental license users. Does that give anybody incumbent type privileges when this thing is ready to go GA?
Well, actually, it does not, but they'll probably be first to market. You see, the way the FCC, the way the AFC reports back, it reports back whatever the licensed. It will tell you that okay, this is what you could use based on the licensed information that I have. But that information is also the same information is delivered to a different AP or a different AP in the vicinity. So it doesn't protect you from an existing deployment. I'm not sure if I answered that question.
Yeah, I think I think that's all accurate. I think the thing to keep in mind is that this is unlicensed spectrum use, so it's not exclusive. And experimental license holders, many of those experimental licenses are starting to expire anyway. And I'm pretty sure that the FCC is not granting new experimental licenses in the spectrum because they're very close now to making it official. So all those experimental license holders, as they expire, are going to have to move to the AFC approach. That means upgrading the firmware and operating with the AFC. And then there's no exclusivity or priority assigned to any experimental license holder.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
So take us through the portfolio, Jihad.
Sure. So in here on the 4500 series, we've introduced 5 new radios. So in the AX, about like a couple years ago, we had a Force 400C and Force 425. Now we have a bigger portfolio, adding to come up with a total of 7 radios. So at the top of the chain, the APs is the EPMP 4500. This is an 8x8 radio with an integrated sector antenna. Really, it's a it's a very nice radio. It almost looks like a Medusa if you've seen it before. It actually takes powering method. It has the ability to take DCN, which is different from the other radios that we've seen. It is MoMIMO, it is OFDMA. Now notice on the bandwidth, we don't do 160 megahertz, as I said, because it's 5 gig, and it can do 1024 QAM. We had a version of this which will be coming next month, is the EPMP 4500C. This is the connectorized version of the same radio, and we've had a lot of interest on this. We're still actually in beta testing with deploying with a set of horns. We partnered with probably just RF Elements right now just to do an 8x8 set of horns, connect them to this particular radio. And also we're gonna do some beta testing on 2 sets of 4x4 horns pointing in different direction to the same AP. One could come up with another use case of having this particular radio connected to a 2x2 horn in every single 90 degrees sector. And that could be a valid use case. We don't know what the performance will look like, but we would like to test and get them ready for the market. Um, Also, we've introduced the EPMP 4500L from the access point. This is a 2x2 uh, a 2x2 reverse polarity SMA. It can almost do some of the features that are all listed in there, with the exception that it is a 2x2. This will do about like maybe 1.6 to 2 gigabytes per second. This is the capacity of this particular AP. If you look at the SM side, we've introduced 2 new SMs. One is the Force 4525. This is an FCC and IC version targeting North America only, versus the 4525L, which targets the rest of the world. So the 4525 is not marketed in North America. 4525L is not marketed in North America, and the 4525 FCC I said is not marketed in the rest of the world. Very similar APs, very similar SMs, but they both don't have SFP plus. That's the only thing I want to mention about them. But they do 1024, and they're also limited to 80 megahertz bandwidth. If we look at what we have done about a couple of years ago, the 400C and the 425, these are environmentally hardened. They can do IP67. They have SFP plus on both of these, versus the 4525 and the 4525L, they don't. So these are great solution to have for a PTP solution, or you want to do backhaul also. These are the SMs that you want to use.
All right, thanks, Jihad.
Welcome.
Let's move. I think in the interest of time, I'm going to move. That kind of covers the 5 gigahertz platform and the 6 gigahertz platform. I want to kind of have a couple minutes to talk about some of the software solutions that go hand in hand with EPMP. So many of you on the call may have heard about QoE, or if you haven't, let's talk about it. It's quality of experience. It's a piece of software that sits kind of on between your network and the internet, and your pairing points, and generally works as a deep packet inspection as well as a customized TCP stack to accelerate traffic. So what it's doing is it's responding with ACKs on behalf of the destination network, and overall is generating significant performance improvements. Well, the real proof is in the operational impact and the goal of QoE, which is to reduce customer complaints, reduce customer churn, and in many cases lower the cost of backhaul, because you're going to use more effective use of that backhaul. So you can see some examples there on the right, where just by turning this device on without even a lot of customization or tweaking or tuning, customers are seeing a significant drop in customer complaints and customer calls. Because what's going to happen is that those gamers on your system that are going to experience better latency, people who are doing Teams calls or Zoom calls like this one are going to have a better performance. And it really kind of trues up the performance and the experience across your entire network. And the nice thing about this is it's really agnostic of the technology and the access network. So if you're deploying EPMP products, if you're deploying our PMP 450 platform, our fiber platform, Even if you're deploying one of our competitors' platforms, this will still help on those networks as well. So it's really agnostic to the access network. It's a software solution, very easy to trial and test, turn the system on, and you just see how it performs in your network. So I encourage you, if you haven't taken a look at QoE, encourage you to take a look at that. It also has a lot of connectivity and interfaces to different billing systems, so you can implement all of your rate plans at the QoE level rather than at the per radio level. So it kind of a little shift in mindset on how you handle those kinds of rate plans.
Bruce, I think one of the coolest things about that slide, if you could go back one, please, is that fourth customer testimonial on the bottom. Not only are they using QoE in a Ubiquiti environment, but they're literally citing how much money they're saving as a service provider. That's just huge. So kudos to you. That's 3 for 3 by my tally. Nice work.
All right.
All right, go ahead, fellas.
Okay, let's bring this home. I would be negligent if I didn't mention CN Maestro and CN Maestro X. CN Maestro is the management system that manages all of Cambium's products. So you can use this to manage your point-to-point, your point-to-multipoint, your enterprise Wi-Fi, all your switches. It's a great solution that just continues to evolve and gets great feedback from customers that are using it. And we continue to add more customers on this every day. So encourage you, if you haven't been using Maestro, you're really missing out on a lot of functionality that goes along with the Cambium products. And I also encourage you to take a look at Maestro X. Those Maestro X features continue to evolve, and really I'm even seeing an acceleration of these things with things like assists, which are going to go in and they'll kind of automatically audit your network for security issues, and it'll come back and give you a report and say, you ought to really upgrade the firmware on this set of radios. You ought to change the default password on these radios. Kind of gives you some automation to make sure your network is running in a secure mode. The next step on that particular feature on assists is to start looking at the channel planning and the RF environment and say, here's some improvements we might recommend to really optimize the network. So lots of acceleration happening with Maestro X. And then also keep in mind Link Planner. Link Planner continues to evolve. It's now almost entirely on a cloud-based version, so you can log in from any browser. You don't have to load that application on your laptop anymore. That's going to continue to new features are going to be largely on that cloud-based version as we move forward on Link Planner. But that is really a great tool that most of our customers are using. It's free of charge. You can go right to our support site and download that. CN Heat, that's a whole topic in itself, but that is a way to use LiDAR data to create precise coverage and near and non-line of sight predictions to endpoints. So you can give very precise pre-qual. If someone calls in and says, I'd like to get service, you can give them very precise and accurate pre-qualification. And then as the installer goes out, you can give them extra guidance on exactly where on the property that they should install that SM. So really a nice tool, again, all about reducing your cost of customer acquisition and customer deployment. And with that, we brought it in 6 minutes early, but certainly have plenty of time for questions if there's more on the queue.
None in the chat currently. Folks, if you do have questions, type those in. I'll lob them at the fellas here, and we'd be more than happy to answer those. Bruce, can you guys comment about WISPA America in
Oh, yeah.
And will you guys be there? We're going to be able to touch some of the 6 gigahertz widgets. We have some training sessions. Talk to us.
Right. I'll give you what I know, and I'll probably forget something, but there'll be more information to come. But that is the week of March 4th, Oklahoma City. And we will have a booth there, of course. WAV will have a booth there, of course. And we will also have our annual Animal Farm session. That's going to be on Wednesday afternoon. Cool. Double check the agenda, but I think it's Wednesday afternoon. And I'll be there. We'll have Matt will be there to cover the PNP 450 side of the house in that portfolio. We'll have Darren there to cover the Wi-Fi, the NSE, and we'll have a team there for the fiber side. So you can talk to us about any of our products. We'll have all of them on display at the booth. and we'll have a whole complement of product line managers and sales team there to support you if you have any questions and if you want to pick up and look and touch any of these radios.
Very cool. On the fiber side, I'll just do a quick plug here on the WAV side. We are offering a training for service providers who've been traditionally fixed wireless access who want to get into fiber. We are going to have Dean Parvar, our fiber engineer, hosting a training on Monday. It's called From the Knock to the Knock, a Fiber 101 training. So if you have need expertise, want to know what it's like to experience Cambium's OLT, ONT solutions, Bayon's going to be training everybody on that, and we'll be there Monday. So look up our website, waveonline.com, and we'd be happy to help you guys out, not only with fixed wireless solutions, but give you a taste for what it's like to be a fiber internet service provider as well. All right, guys, I don't see any other questions. I'll lob one more at you for our Canadian brethren and sisters. This 100 megahertz of extra spectrum that Canada is going to get. What is cool about that, Bruce, in your opinion, as a service provider? How should they take advantage of that, sir?
Yeah, I think it's just, this is the biggest piece of spectrum that's come available. I was thinking back, I think the previous time they opened up some spectrum like this was 5.4. That was probably close to 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So in general, 850 megahertz of spectrum, and then Canada gets the lucky guys to the north get another 100 meg. So I don't think I would think of it as anything different other than all those channels that come available and the ability to operate 160 meg channels or 80 meg channels at the higher modulations is just that much more flexibility in Canada than we'll have here in the US. So really, it's just a bigger canvas to put your spectrum and draw your map on.
Less congested highway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, beautiful. Gentlemen, very informative. Thank you for your time. Folks, we will be posting this on YouTube, and you'll be able to see the recording. Jihad, did you have any closing thoughts, sir?
I was going to say to Bruce, plus it is a continuous spectrum. That gives you the flexibility to use 160 megahertz all over.
Yeah, perfect. Yep, because
So
it kind of fills in that, it fills in that hole that's in the spectrum map. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good point.
I love it. Great subsequent point. Folks, if you need any help with 6 gigahertz deployments for Cambium in the US, in Canada, contact WAV and MBSI WAV. Obviously, we're supported by Bruce and Jihad and the whole team at Cambium. We're here to answer your questions and help you be successful. Guys, thank you so much for a great webinar today, and we'll be talking soon. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks again.